Of the European low-cost carriers, easyJet seems to have a better reputation than its competitors. More comfortable seats and better customer service are a few of the points mentioned by travellers, particularly when making a comparison with Irish low-cost carrier giant Ryanair. At the very end of September, we took a very short flight with easyJet from Edinburgh to Belfast and had the chance to experience the airline's offerings for ourselves. In this case, our flight reviewer last travelled with the carrier in 2019. So this will be a review of the flight while also discussing the departures experience at Edinburgh Airport as well as the arrival at Belfast International. So let's get started. Booking a flight with easyJet was somewhat easy, although it wasn't without the standard annoyances that come with budget airlines. Indeed, just like Ryanair, customers are bombarded with messages encouraging add-ons such as car rental, travel insurance, food vouchers, and more. There's also multiple warnings and encouragements to purchase additional baggage. This warning about baggage might actually be helpful for anyone still assuming that a second carry-on bag was allowed, but for frequent travellers, it's quite repetitive. In our situation, we had two travellers flying for leisure purposes. They were travelling light, and in addition to each having a backpack, they shared one larger bag between the two of them. Thus, in terms of add-ons, all that was really needed was to purchase a quote-unquote large cabin bag for storage in the overhead locker. Prior to 2021, passengers were able to bring one bag free of charge on board, but this could be up to 56 by 45 by 25 centimetres and fit into the overhead locker. However, this quote-unquote generous policy was changed last year and is more in line with the cabin bag policies of Ryanair and Wizz Air. The airfare came to a total of about £88 for two passengers, which breaks down as follows. £56.98 for the Standard Plus airfare. This offers underseat bag and one large cabin bag for overhead locker. This also included seat selection and priority boarding. £30.99 for the basic standard fare. This has only personal item included for storage under the seat in front. According to the airline, all fares include free carbon offsetting as well, which is a nice touch. All in all, the price of £88 for our two passengers in this flight review, equivalent to about $93 at the time of production, seemed quite reasonable. This price was the result of booking 1 month in advance, as fares definitely go up when getting closer to the date of flight. One alternate idea was to take a bus to Scotland's west coast and take a ferry to Belfast just to get that maritime experience. However, in retrospect, attempting this would have taken nearly a full day and would have offered little benefit, particularly with the stormy Scottish-Irish weather. While it's not often a part of flight reviews, we thought it was worth mentioning the ground transportation experience of getting from Edinburgh's city centre to Edinburgh Airport. The two most popular options are bus and tram. The tram is slightly more expensive, but doesn't really offer too much more than the bus. Thus, our travellers opted for Edinburgh's Airlink 100 service, which costs £7.50 per passenger for an open return ticket. In addition to Airlink buses having flight and airport security statuses updating on screens, this bus service, like all other Lothian buses, offers free Wi-Fi. The 100 service also has fantastic frequency, operating as often as every 10 minutes during the daytime. You'll see these buses running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Having lived in Edinburgh for about a year, one of our travellers was already familiar with the airport and its relatively small size. Of course, since 2018, the airport appears to have expanded with the addition of more gates and other passenger facilities. Arriving at around 0900 on a Friday morning, the airport was already quite busy. Having checked in online with no baggage to drop off, we headed right to security screening. The multiple stations that allow about 5 passengers to simultaneously prepare themselves and their belongings for scanning, officially known as parallel divestment, is fantastic and is definitely something that every airport needs to implement. While the airport has grown over the past few years, The one thing that has apparently remained is the fact that all passengers must take a long and winding walk through an airport duty-free store. The most annoying part of this is that it is indirect and forces passengers to take a circuitous route through the crowded shop, which can be extra frustrating if you're running late and have no need to buy anything. The airport terminal itself is full of shops, cafes and restaurants, and is well equipped to help passengers pass the time with food and shopping. Restaurant prices are quite in line with most airports around the world, in that you're usually paying a bit more than you would pay landside. Another thing to note is that the Edinburgh airport has water fountains distributed throughout the terminal, which are able to accommodate the refilling of water bottles. Heading to the gate, another strike against the airport is that its series of moving walkways, at least in one part of the airport, were out of service. While it's not a massive and lengthy terminal, there is a bit of distance to cover, and not having this feature functioning properly makes things more congested and certainly more difficult for those with mobility issues. Thankfully, however, the actual boarding process for our little easyJet service was smooth, even if it was a little difficult to hear the boarding announcement. Boarding was managed by a single gate agent who did a great job and was friendly and courteous. While no jet bridge was provided, we also avoided the need to step onto a shuttle bus since we walked directly from the terminal to the aircraft. The in-flight experience is probably the least interesting part of the journey, since the actual time in the air was only 30 to 40 minutes in duration. Additionally, easyJet tends to offer a fairly consistent experience across its entire single-class configured Airbus A320 family fleet. However, here are some key things to note as part of flying with easyJet. Seats are comfortable and have a pitch of 29 inches. Unlike Ryanair, easyJet seats do include a seat back pocket. Seat backs also include a tray table and a small knob to hang coats. And the space under the seat is large enough to fit a medium-large backpack underneath. Prior to aircraft pushback, our aircraft did have one issue. Apparently, the APU, or the auxiliary power unit, was not functioning properly. Thus, no air conditioning was running while our aircraft was parked at the gate for boarding. While the pilots apologised for this, it wasn't a huge deal considering the cold and rainy Scottish weather. With the flight being so short, there's not much else to say. Neither of our two travellers ordered any food or drink from the in-flight menu, nor was there any need to use the lavatory. However, it's worth mentioning that one of our reviewers had the pre-selected seat of 2A, while the other had the quote-unquote randomly allocated seat of 5D. With the flight being about 60% full and seats 2B and 2C empty, we asked the cabin crew if it was possible to relocate and sit together in row 2. They had no problem with this, which was great. Before our travellers had time to get comfortable in their seats, it was time to prepare for landing at Belfast International Airport. While easyJet appears to operate out of both Belfast City Airport and Belfast International, it seems that the airline has far more flights out of the latter facility. Just like our flight departure, arriving at Belfast saw us exit the aircraft via air stairs and walk directly into the terminal. With both Scotland and Northern Ireland being part of the UK, this domestic flight had no need for border control, and thus passengers were able to exit the airport in a matter of minutes. In the case of this particular flight, it's worth mentioning that the tourist information booth our travellers encountered in the arrivals area near baggage reclaim allowed them to purchase bus and rail tickets for their onward journey using a bank card. In addition to saving money, it was extremely helpful since there was some uncertainty if the bus from the airport to Antrim accepted cash, which it didn't. So, in conclusion, this late September experience with easyJet went quite smoothly, with the only few airline-related annoyances being the non-functioning auxiliary power unit and booking process, since there was only a requirement for one large bag between two passengers. Despite the news of the past few months, our travellers didn't encounter much quote-unquote travel chaos at all when flying through these two smaller UK airports, even though it was a Friday morning in late September. While Edinburgh Airport was crowded and busy, the facility and its army of personnel appeared to manage and move passengers through security screening quite well. easyJet personnel, both at the airport gate and on board the aircraft, were courteous, professional and friendly. All in all, it was a great deal to fly from Edinburgh to Belfast for less than £100 for two passengers and an additional bag. But what about you? Have you flown with easyJet in recent times? Or have you passed through Edinburgh or Belfast international airports recently? How do your own experiences compare to this flight review? Let us know by leaving a comment. Simple Flying publishes over 150 articles every week. If you're looking for the latest aviation news and insights, visit simpleflying.com.